Hi darlings, welcome to this video. I was absolutely astounded last night. I will say my ghast was well and truly flabbered when I was scrolling through Instagram, happened upon a post from RM Sotheby's auction house with this, a collection of 18 of the most incredible cars ever produced, all going under the hammer on one day, from one collection. Baffled. I'm sure the internet's going to be awash with speculation, opinions, expert price guides. So with me being the high profile platformer that I am, I think it's only right that I put my hat in the ring. And I'd like to just talk about the cars, give you my thoughts on the value and what they may go for on the day. It's not going to be the most slick of videos, so I will apologise for that at this stage. It's going to be pretty basic, me talking to camera about cars. If that's not for you, then, you know, by all means, disappear. I thought I'd let you know now so you don't get too invested. But, you know, it would be nice if you just gave a little thumbs up, maybe left a comment saying, this is rubbish. Subscribe, because the rest of my videos are good. Key reason, Blair, my videographer, is the best damn videographer this side of Garstown. So he's way too busy to do last minute videos like this. Let's see what we've got. Okay, first thing to talk about, the Rabonkers Bugatti Chiron Super Sport 300 plus. So this is a relatively recent addition to the ever-expanding Bugatti Veyron Chiron stable. Launched earlier this year. This car was registered, it's on a 71 plate, so it was registered January, February of this year. So Mr. Gran Turismo hasn't had it for too long. It was built in honour of the Chiron's record-breaking 304 miles an hour top speed, and sits there, you know, carbon black, jet orange, same again on the inside, absolutely preposterous performance. What are we looking at here? 8-litre quad turbo W16, nearly 1600 horsepower. Just mind-boggling. Not my favourite car of the collection, nor is it actually one of my favourite cars at all, to be honest. I feel like in these days of constant new models and then new variants of that model and then special limited run variants of those variants, it's like there's a new Chiron every day, there's a new Bugatti every day, there's a new Ferrari every day. There's all this profit-driven motoring, Instagram-heavy stuff going on at the minute. So yeah, don't excite me massively. But if you take a look at the money of it, £3.1 million when they were new, and that was a starting price, and that was plus taxes and plus spec and all that sort of jazz. So this could well have been getting on for £4 million. It's tricky to gauge where it's going to get to at an auction, but I can well imagine, even if I had the money, I couldn't just walk into Bugatti and say, I want a Chiron Super Sport, because they'd tell me to disappear in hopefully a very polite way, but probably not. And I would say that if there's a buyer out there that has a ton of money, they're able to just buy it and have it now. And that's a big thing with cars like these, I find. So March 22, one of these went through Sotheby's over in the US at 3.36 million, and it wasn't a Super 300 plus. So where's this going to sit? 4.75. I'm gonna say it, 4.75 million for the Bugatti Chiron Super Sport 300. What's next? Man, next under the hammer, the Bugatti EB110 Super Sport. This is one of only 30 cars produced by Bugatti, and it's one of only 2 that were finished in Bianco, Monaco. Stunning, stunning specification, mega car, and this was pre-Instagram, this was pre-Volkswagen ownership even. This was way back when Bugatti were just, to be a bit Clarkson, probably making cars in an Italian shed surrounded by cows and goats and, yeah, eating pizza. So that's what Clarkson would probably say. I'm sure it's probably not far from the truth, to be honest with you, but I always remember the EB110 from when I was a kid. This is 1996, so I'll have been 10 at that point. I always remember driving through Italy, and it was about that time I had a 118 scale model of an EB110, and actually I was sat in the back of the car. We had a German registered Ford Granada 2.8, and we were driving back to our home in Mönchengladbach from a camping trip in Italy, and I had my 118 scale B Barago EB110 in red. I was just there, and we drove through, I can't even remember where, somewhere in Italy, and right by the roadside, giant glass box area of a showroom, and there it was, a bright red EB110, and I've just been obsessed ever since. Watching road tests at the time when I was a kid, and then hearing that it's got 4 turbos, not 1 or 2, but it's got 4 turbos. It had, if I remember, 10 radiators, I think, for all the various cooling systems and everything to keep the car cool when it was hammering about. I've got here, what's the power? 603 horsepower. And at the time, they were £300,000 new, which was a hell of a lot of money back then. It's a lot of money now, but crazy money, crazy car, and it's pre-Instagram, it's pre-poser. It's the real Bugatti for me. I love the Veyron, epic engineering, tour de force to be a bit cliche, but for me it's all about the EB110. August last year, one of these went through Sotheby's, no it wasn't Sotheby's, somewhere else on Pebble Beach for just over $3 million. Car market right now, who knows? All of these 18 cars, I'm going to say, are absolutely recession-proof. The people that are buying them are people who have got money, and they will retain their money, and they're not worried about what's going to happen with the energy crisis. So I'm going to throw this at 3.25 million for the 1996 EB110 Super Sport. We're getting massive. Third car for me to talk about. It's another Bugatti. It's another EB110. This is a GT and finished in Bugatti Blue, BLU. Stunner. Just the epitome of the EB110 for me in this colour, with the GT wheels as well. And they're just bonkers. I've got a model. In fact, the model I was talking about is downstairs. I should probably go and get it, shouldn't I? This one here, one of just 139 total EB110s made. 84 of those were GTs, 11,000 kilometres on the clock. Clearly, supremely looked after, and an absolute monster for any collector to have in their collection. February 2022, Bonhams shoved one through at Paris, $1.8 million. Sorry, 1.8 million euros. They can't be going down. They cannot. They can only be going up because they're finite. It's just a massive engine with loads and loads of turbos, massive, massive power. It's £2 million. Gotta be. Okay, the Bugattis are done. What a mad collection to have to talk about Bugattis for so long. But if you thought I was talking about Bugattis for a bit too long, we're now on with the Ferraris and this muscular brute of a bitch of a thing. Ferrari 288 GTO, 1985. Phenomenal, preposterous, mental, massive things. Originally a homologation of the 308 GTB. Doesn't look anything like one, does it? It's got pop-up lights and the slats behind the lights. So I suppose that's it. There's a side intake as well. So yeah, it's absolutely a 308. Ferrari did that to keep costs down and get production moving quickly. They really, really wanted to get this car out fast. Taking styling cues as well from the good old 250 GTO. Things like the slats at the rear to aid brake cooling, and the, I nearly said ducktail spoiler, but that would get me in trouble. The spoiler goes up like it did on the 250 GTO. So everything works, everything looks absolutely super. They made 272 of these cars. Madly enough, the last one of that, car 272, was gifted to Niki Lauda by Enzo Ferrari himself. I just love that. I think it's absolutely mega. The 288 of the name simply comes from the fact it's got a 2.8 V8. Imagine that. such a low displacement engine with 8 cylinders, absolutely baffling. 395 horsepower from that little V8, but of course with it being such a small displacement, all that power is way up at the top end, 7,000 revs, so you've got to get it screaming to get that power, and it's just, I've never driven a 288, but I think I might have mentioned I had a 355 Spider for some time, and just getting that on song was the most incredible feeling. All the senses were tingled. These are climbing. It's a weird thing to say, isn't it? Because everything's bloody climbing at the minute, at this level anyway, not like the cars that I buy. But everything is shooting up, bomb-proof, recession-proof, epic things like these. So they were sitting at 1.5 to 2 million pounds for quite some time. Recently, however, at Sotheby's over in the US, this is August of this year, so only a couple of months ago, one hit $4.4 million. Baffled. This is a Class E certified car, numbers matching as well in Rosso Corsa. What's not to love? I'm gonna go, I'd love to sort of be tipping 4 million, but so 3.75 million on the 288 GTO. Oh, at this point, I might just start licking the screen. Ferrari F40. Just, for me, the ultimate. It's one of my top 3 cars of all time. Another one of those cars is coming a bit later on. Sadly, the third, McLaren F1, doesn't make the list today. Not even sure if the Gran Turismo contains one. Maybe it does, and maybe he's just keeping onto it. Sorry, I just said he. I don't know who is the collector. Might well be a lady, might well be one of the other non-specific or actually specific or whatever. I don't want to get into a gender argument. I'm not going to do that. The F40 built to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Ferrari, and for me, just one of the most incredible cars to look at of all time. Maybe that's an age thing. I don't know. Obviously, I was 5 years old in 1991 when this car was built. This is one of the later cars, so it's post 1990 when America got involved and said, you know, regulatory aspects, you've got to fit catalytic converters, you've got to do all this sort of jazz. So this is a cat car, but non-adjustable, so you don't have the ride height adjustability on the front end. It's my dream car forever, and maybe that's what does it for me. My age, the sort of the formative years, me just loving cars, having a model of an F40 with the 3 exhausts. You know, you got that small circular one in the middle. That one is for the wastegate gases from the turbo. The 2 outer ones are your standard exhaust from the manifolds either side. But then 2 air intakes here for the brakes and the engine. It's just the most incredible looking car. I've been obsessed with them forever, and they haven't really done much value-wise. For as long as I've been looking at them, really, they were sort of 500,000 years and years and years ago. And then they were getting up to 800,000. And that's sort of where they sat for quite some time. Actually, the F40 LM cars, they went crazy, 2.5, 3 million, 4 million pounds. Standard road-going F40s, yeah, 1 million is sort of where it's at. Just a mad car, not even received very well at launch, which strikes me as odd. You know, you think it's a Ferrari supercar, topped 200 miles an hour. It was this sensational piece of engineering, and yeah, the journos weren't massively into it. One of them called it a 30-minute car, you know, just saying you've got 30 minutes in it before you lose your marbles, you've got to sit down, you've got to have a break, you've got to have a cup of tea and reset your mind, ready to go again. I suppose it wasn't helped at the time. You had the Porsche 959 as well, which everybody was naturally comparing the F40 to side by side, and it just doesn't compute. This is super raw, super Spartan, super bare, super tricky to drive. Apparently, I've never even sat in one. Whereas the 959, Ferrari even called it a car for the future, way too technologically advanced for what it had to be. And that was the yardstick, unfortunately. So the F40, all in, not loved at the time, absolutely heralded now as one of the finest cars of all time. But yeah, it hasn't reached the multi-million-pound height of other very rare Ferraris. So I'm going to put this, quite conservatively I think, at £950,000. So you have an F40 for the 40th anniversary of Ferrari. What happens at the 50th anniversary? You get one of these, a Ferrari F50. This is a super late car actually, as you can see, 1997. They built a number of the cars, they sold a number of the cars, and the Sultan of Brunei said, I want some, and it seems that I've missed out. So this is actually one of the 3 post-production cars that Ferrari specially built for the Sultan of Brunei. Surely that's got to add a little bit of value to this car in particular. It's never really got me though, the F50. Whether I was just blindly guided by Mr. Clarkson when I was a kid and absolutely obsessed with his double denim and his perms, it never stacked up for me. The F40 was the poster car. The F50 was, yeah, it was wild. It had Formula One styling to the front. But all in, it's just, in pictures, I suppose, wild yet soft. Obviously, in person, they're massively wide cars with gigantic rear wheels, and you just think, Christ. But 500 odd horsepower, super lightweight, mega quick, and seemingly somehow worth more than F40s, which, I don't know, does it make me sad? I don't know, maybe a bit, but it's the beauty of hypercars, I guess, isn't it? Or they're just lauded and held in this much higher esteem for some reason. I don't know what. It's not my favourite car at all. I think they're a bit soft. But 2014, £900,000, that sort of region, which, you know, even today is still a lot of dough. However, we're getting over $4 million for an early car. One even hit $5.1 million at Monterey in August, only a couple of months ago. Baffling, absolutely baffling. So, I mean, what can I say? I put the F40 at 950,000. I'd rather an F40 over an F50 any day of the week, but because of what it is, because of the values currently at auction, I'm going to shove £3 million on the F50. Okay, fast forward a few years, 6 to be precise, which is how many litres this car has. The F40, the F50, this car was rightly or wrongly sort of known as the F60 in the trade circles when it was launched, but of course it's called the Enzo. Can't remember why. So this car's been in the GT collection since brand new. 6-litre V12, 650 horsepower, finished in Rosso with Nero hide, absolute monster. 399 of these cars were built, with all of those being offered to people who bought the F40 and the F50. They were rightly snapped up pretty much immediately. But then car number 400 was built by Ferrari and given to the Vatican. So, I mean, thank you, nice gift, imagine that. So that one actually went to auction and it made just over €1 million. And that remained in the Vatican, it was a charity thing. So, okay, fair dues. Beyond being one of the greatest supercars of all time and looking absolutely sensational, I don't really know what else to say. I just want to get to the money of it. They're tipping $3.5 million now at auction stateside, which is where a lot of these are getting sold, to be fair. They were hitting auction in the late, even as late as 2017, 2018, with marks of like 1.6, 1.9 million pounds and remaining unsold. They weren't even going through. So now that the market's done what it's done over the last few years, I'm still going to say it's going to sell. Of course it is. It's an Enzo and it's going to go for 2.5 million pounds. Yes. Next up on the prancing horse odyssey of the Gran Turismo collection is the Ferrari. That's the fashionable way to say it, isn't it, I think? It's called La Ferrari. But the there just denotes that it is the Ferrari. It's the best Ferrari of all time in Ferrari's eyes. 6.3 litre V12, loads and loads of power, electric motor in there as well, and a KERS system, giving you an extra boost. as and when. This is a 2014 car, which places it a couple of years before the Aperta took over in 2016. They were sold at €1 million new. That was the price point, that's where they were, and they obviously rocketed from there. Back in December 2016, a LaFerrari became the most valuable 21st century car to ever go through auction when it made $7 million, which is a ghastly amount of money. But over here, what are we thinking? 2.5, 3.5 million pounds. That's where they're at, realistically, at a standard auction in the UK. I don't know what happens in America. I think sometimes they go a bit crazy for things. The last one sold in 2021, 2.1 million pounds. So I'm going to shove this in 2.5, 2.5 million. I just love yellow cars. I love Giallo Fly. I just love them. Yellow cars are absolutely mega, and I love a yellow Ferrari. What I also love is a 550. For me, it's one of my dream GT cars. Massive V12, ideally a manual 6-speed box, and plenty of room for luggage as well. I can't think of anything better than a 550, and it's on my list for sure. The Barchetta isn't on my list, simply because I can't get close to affording one right now. They made 448 of these cars. I would go as far as saying maybe that many in yellow, if at all. It's been in the Gran Turismo collection since new, so it's a one-owner car with a Fiorano handling pack, 5.5 V12 manual. I can hear it. I can virtually hear it already. We are way into the sub-million pound territory now. Although they were still priced pretty heavily. I know Harry Metcalf had one of these and absolutely adored it, and for great reason as well. I'm gonna put this, the last one went through auction in Monaco, and that was €350,000. I'm gonna go as low as 275 on this 550 Barchetta. Beautiful thing though it is, it doesn't have the pull of the others. Mwah! So next in the Giallo garage of Gran Turismo is this 2006 Ferrari Super America, which was based on the 575, which was a facelifted 550. So it had more power, bigger brakes, basically a facelift. If I just did that, I'd look a whole lot better. And that's what Ferrari think the 575 looked. I didn't like it as much as the 550, to be fair. I didn't like the headlights, I didn't like the wheels. Very, very superficial things, of course, but it just never got me. They made 63 UK cars, and that places this as a very, very rare thing indeed, although we are a teeny tiny little island. Again, values of these are pretty tricky to gauge. One went through St. Moritz not too long ago, and I say it went through, it didn't even go through. It was reserved at 700,000 Swiss francs and didn't get close. That's about £630,000. Didn't get close. The last one to sell in the UK was September 2022, where it made £260,000. Not a lot of money, but it is a lot of money. I like the car, don't love the car. I'm going to place this 2.25. Yeah, because it's yellow. Not everyone loves yellow like I do. Another yellow Ferrari. This time it's a 599 Super America Aperta. Aperta because the roof comes off. Of course it does. It's yellow. I don't love it. I like the 599 though, to be fair. I'd have a GTB because that's just a Zatora Mega, and apparently bulletproof engines as well, providing you look after them. They just last and last and last. They made 80 of these cars. It was built to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Pininfarina, obviously Ferrari's styling house for decades and decades and decades. Bugatti had Bertone, Ferrari had Pininfarina. So when they were 80, they built 80 of these. Mad money, mad money. It's been in the Gran Turismo collection since new as well. There was one at Sotheby's 2020, had a reserve of 850,000 to £1 million as a guide, and it didn't sell. They don't come up for sale very often. So as I say, super hard to gauge, but because I'm playing a game, I'm going to do £750,000. That's where I see it, that's where I'd like it to go, because then I'd win. I don't know what I win. Happiness. Okay, staying very much in Italy, but moving away from Ferrari now, we have the Wolf of Wall Street spec. Bianco, everywhere, white. Lamborghini Countach LP 5000S, it says here. But I'm fairly sure it's a 500S, the 5000S, Valvio something. I think this is pre then, based on the year. The Valoni, whatever, the 4 valve per cylinder, basically came out a couple of years after the 1984 model here. But they were known as an LP5000, so, you know, whatever. Astonishing thing. 321 made of this, which is basically a facelifted LP400, so bigger power, all that sort of jazz, but retaining things like the incredible scissor doors, the Bertone styling, the monstrous rear wheels. It's just the most incredible poster car. Obviously Clarkson drove it a lot, and he put the door up and sat on the side so he could drive, and called the rear window a letterbox and said it was horrible and ghastly and just the worst thing on the planet to drive. But it doesn't matter, putting that in your collection, it's just something to sit back and look at forever. I love them. I'm wondering whether this will ride the coattails of the 2022 Revival Countach. Might well do. Perhaps a buyer of that car will want this to go next to it, though I'm sure most who have the Revival, no, they probably don't have a Countach, because the Revival's very Instagram, I think. When you consider that an absolutely stripped down Countach went through Historics auction back in September last year for £257,000 plus fees, this has got to be a monster, hasn't it? It's a proper car, it works, it's all white, Barrymore, and it looks just, it's incredible. What's the mileage? 54,000 kilometres, 2-owner car from new, 1984. I'm shoving this in, £500,000, £500,000. Let's go. Now for one of perhaps the most perfect automobiles of all time, the Lamborghini Miura SV. Good God, styled by Bertone, actually engineered in spare time. Ferruccio was having none of it. He thought, no, I like my luxurious, fast, cross-country pace cars. The engineers went, nah, come on, let's stick it somewhere at Ferrari and build an incredible sports car. And that's what they did in their spare time in the evenings. Showed it to Ferruccio, said, right, this is what we've got. Isn't it epic? And he was, I won't do an Italian accent, because I can't. He said, yeah, it'd act as a decent marketing tool for Lamborghini, for the brand. Let's use that as a marketing tool. And then obviously the Italian job happened, and this was the opening car. So yeah, it certainly did its job, I think, for Lamborghini. This is one of 150 cars altogether, one of only 23 US spec cars in just, for me, is it the ultimate Miura colour? Verde Miura. God, I did the Italian accent, that was terrible. Matching numbers car, and at launch it was the fastest production car as well, so absolutely splendid thing. And again, you know, I refer back to Clarkson, but he did the whole thing where, you know, it was designed pre-air tunnel basically, so there was no idea of airflow over the car. So as you get to a certain speed, the front end comes up, and he was out the window with a pilot's moustache and a scarf, and it was all really funny when I was 9 years old. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it goes a bit light on the nose, does it? Because it looks like that, it sounds like that. It's just motoring history. Absolutely splendid. I have no doubt it's going to absolutely fly. They've been £2 to £3 million for the last few years now, anytime they've been changing hands, with a Speciale hitting a high of 3.2 million in 2020. What's my guess for this? £2.2 million for the Miura. Alrighty, I'm going to rattle through these because it looks like the battery is dying on my little DJI Pocket Cam. But this is an epic thing. 53 of these made, Jaguar XJR15, 1991. So that's 31 years ago. They had a list of £500,000 when they were new. They were built as basically a Le Mans car for the road. Heavy involvement from TWR, Tom Walkinshaw Racing, who of course was with Jaguar Sport at the time. So this was a homologation car for that. 6-litre V12, 450 horsepower, weighed 50 kilograms more than a ton. So just imagine that. I remember seeing Tiff Needell drive one of these and spin it many times. Crazy thing, styled by Peter Stevens actually. So He's the chap that then went on to do the McLaren F1, and you can really see some of the cues there. 100% for me, it's £1 million car. It's got to be. It's a race car for the road. Tom at TWR and Jaguar Sport, they just took an XJR9 from the racetrack and made it a road car. That's why this is so great. As I say, they made hardly any of them. It's a car that will go down in history forever. Billed as a better XJ220. I'm not so sure about. That's actually one of my other favourite cars, and the one we're going to talk about next. £1 million. Oh, XJ220. I'm going to have an accident. For me, the finest car of all time. I love everything about it. Everything. The glasses, the catchphrase, the wig. I love everything about it. It's so great. Let me just sort that out. You can tell how bad I am. Actually, I'm sure you probably won't even be able to see what's on the screen, actually. And I haven't even been bothered to change camera angles. That's why I need my care blare back. But 1993 XJ220S. I'm sure we all know the story of the XJ220, how it was feverishly put together pretty much at the last minute before the International Motor Show at the NEC back in 1992 minus 4. 1988. Minus 4, it was actually 4-wheel drive, and it had a V12 in it. And 1,500 people went, yep, I'll have it, I don't care how much it costs. Here's my money, £50,000 deposit, secure me that car. And by the time 1992 came around, a lot of those people just said no. There was a massive recession in the early 90s. It was now a Rover Austin V6 rather than a V12. Couple of turbos in there as well, and it wasn't 4-wheel drive anymore, although it was aluminium, and a lot of buyers just went, no, don't fancy it, mate. So 275 ended up being built with a £470,000 list. That £470,000 basically became its price forever. Never seemed to go lower than 300, never really seemed to go higher than 450. And now I just really think that they've got to start pushing, they've got to start climbing. This isn't the XJ220 though, it's the S. It was part of the homologation process to allow Jaguar into Le Mans back in the early 90s, and there's only 5 of these and only 1 in orange, so impossible, I think, to gauge the value of this. 400, 500 odd thousand maybe, but this is 1 of 5, and it's orange. And it's a race car for the road. I'm just going to say 875. I really think it's going to get pretty north of a standard XJ220. And yeah, it's just got to be done, hasn't it? 875. Okay, really rattling through now with the most boring video to ever hit YouTube. I'm sorry. But this Lancia 037 1982 works car, Evo 1. This exact vehicle here won the ADAC rally over in Deutschland in 1983 at the hands of the legendary Walter Röhrl. So surely that's going to add quite a bit of money to the value. It was the last rear drive World Rally Champion car as well. Everything went quattro with a car that we're about to see. And a road car sold for £850,000 in 2019. So tricky to gauge. Rally cars are going crazy. McRae's cars have been going through Silverstone and making crazy money. But I'm going to say 850 on the 037. Can you imagine driving a rally car that weighs 890 kilograms, but it's got 480 horsepower? Absolutely mind-boggling. Can't even imagine what that's like. Lancia Delta S4, 1986 car. It won the Monte Carlo Rally of the same year, so huge motoring credentials to it. Loads and loads of provenance with this car. In 2019, one of these exact same models went for £764,000, including fees. Let's bump a little bit on top of that as well. And why not? For one of the best rally cars of all time, in the best rally car colours of all time, $850,000 for the Lancia Delta S4. Okay, the big daddy in the rally world really basically redefined an entire motorsport with the 4-wheel drive system. The short wheelbase Quattro S1 works car, just phenomenal. You think of rally car of a certain era, and this is the car you think of. There was a sale in Paris last year, I think, something like that. And there were a whole raft of ex-museum rally cars. And you had Peugeot T16s, Metro 6R4s, Ford RS200, all these incredible epitomal rally cars. Is epitomal a word? It is now. This car here, not this exact car, I'm sorry, but a short wheelbase Series 1 Audi Quattro made €2 million, which is twice what the reserve was. €2 million, and that set a world record for a rally car sale at auction. Absolutely blistering. Is it gonna make 2 million here at this point? I don't know. It's a car for a collection, is what it is. Will it race again? Probably not. With the value that it is, I wouldn't say that it is. I'm gonna go as far as saying 1.5 million for this car. Of the 18 cars from the Gran Turismo collection going through Sotheby's, that's the 5th of November. I'm going to be writing a note in my diary because I can't wait to see what happens there. But I've got a total then, adding all of those 18 cars up. And again, sorry, horribly boring video. No dynamic to the edit whatsoever. I'm not even in the shop most of the time, and you probably can't see what's on the screen. But I've got a total for this auction of £31.75 million, plus fees, of course. So I'll be watching it. I'm going to see how right I am. I wonder if I'm within a couple of million, maybe you could buy me a drink. That'd be delightful. Loads more coming for the channel, and believe me, the editing will be far more slick, the content will be far more delightful. Some of the cars that we've got coming in are splendid. The 10K Ferrari Challenge, of course, is rolling with a new vehicle just down there, actually, under the mezzanine. So can't wait to do more with that. Thank you if you have watched, and certainly thank you if you have watched this far, because I'm aware it's quite boring. But I love you all dearly. I'll do an update in November. Let's see how close I was. Have a beautiful day. See you soon.